So this is the KhoodeelaarTV television channel being broadcast on the internet under the banner of Baby Angel Geronimo Editions. This one is timed at 07:20 GMT on Friday, 11th of August 2023. And one of the things that we shall be discussing, of course, would be the continuing festering behavior by the liar Lutfur Rahman at the expense of the community in the London Borough of Tower Hamlets in London, United Kingdom. What is the meaning of this word I have been using? The word festering the third meaning is becoming worse or more intense, especially through long-term neglect or indifference. Now, this is the most appropriate use of festering when applied to the behavior of Lutfur Rahman, who is officially in the post of the corrupt post of the mayor at the expense of the community in Tower Hamlets. Now, as thoughtful and attentive viewers of this channel would know, I have been originally broadcasting, factually, absolutely, authentically broadcasting, and that is the short list of characteristics by which Baby Angel Geronimo's witness is identified. The witness of the badness, the pervasive depravity in the United Kingdom, local states, regional states, and central state, the central parliament, etc. Now, when Lutfur Rahman was kicked out officially from the post by Richard Morey, in the ruling that Morey published on that date, 23rd of April 2015, in his position as the election commissioner, when Morey did that, Morey listed a number of things about Lutfur Rahman's, quote, character. And Richard Morey concluded that Lutfur Rahman was not a reliable person, in the sense that he was not somebody that could be relied on to tell the truth. This is the ruling that is quite extensive, and Richard Morey published the ruling on the 23rd of April, the date when I arrived to observe the events from outside the with quote Royal Courts of Justice in the Strand in London. And I shall read the particular bits from Richard Morey. And that case is titled Alam. Alam is the name of Andy Alam, one of the four listed petitioners. Alam, and then the second one is Debbie Simon. The third one is Azma Al Hussein, and the fourth one is Angela Moffat. And the defendant or respondents in the actual published order or ruling were Mohammed Lutfur Rahman. The spelling is Mohammed, Mohammed Lutfur Rahman, which is a racist, imperialistic distortion of the nearest accurate transliterated version, which would have been Muhammad. But Morey, in his literature, is preferring to stick to the colonialist perversion, distortion of the spelling of that name. So that is Mohammed Lutfur Rahman. And the second one is John S. Williams, returning officer. Now, we are not talking about Morey, about John S. Williams or John Biggs in the comments that Morey made. Favorable, very favorable points, comments that Morey made about John S. Williams and John Biggs. Not going to discuss that in this edition. Those are, let's say, mainly to be treated, I would say, in effect, as comments or remarks in passing. In the so-called law Latin, the phrase would be any comment like that, obiter dicta. And the obiter dicta that Morey stated were prompted by his own, that is Richard Morey's, lack of education and his consequent lack of understanding of the racist power structure. And finally, his propensity, Richard Morey's propensity to conclude prima facie that a white person like Jonas Williams or John Biggs was likely to do good rather than bad. These are things that are there in the actual contents of what Morey said. and I shall examine those in extensive detail another time or more than one more time. In this context of describing Lutfur Rahman as a liar, I am relying on the actual published central findings that Mori makes and calls Lutfur Rahman, in effect, describes Lutfur Rahman as a liar. And in that report that Mori published on the 23rd of April 2015, there is significant reference to money, finance, grants, and Mori actually talks about what Mori effectively talks about is what I had found in October 2010, which was 5 calendar years before Mori's report, that Lutfur Rahman intellectually was deficient, that Lutfur Rahman had, and I'm sure from the evidence that we are now looking at, persists to exhibit symptoms, evidence of his being intellectually deficient. If Lutfur Rahman was not intellectually deficient, he would not have got himself in the news about spending money to do things like buy expensive table and chairs for the mayor's office. Now, this is a piece in the Evening Standard, no standard. Let's say it again. The London Evening, no standard, has run the piece 2 days ago about Lutfur Rahman by Rachel Burford, who is described as the chief political correspondent. And the piece begins, the opening sentence in that item, that is headed Tower Hamlets to spend thousands on lavish mayor's office, is Rachel Barford, chief political correspondent. And the opening paragraph: one of London's poorest boroughs is set to spend hundreds of thousands of pounds on a lavish makeover of the mayor's office, despite the council, that is Tower Hamlets Council, moving into the new town hall less than a year ago. Next paragraph: plans for Tower Hamlets leader Lutfur Rahman. I'll read that again. Plans for Tower Hamlets leader Lutfur Rahman. I'll read that again a third time. Plans for Tower Hamlets leader Lutfur Rahman's new executive workspace include a £50,000 meeting table and 30 luxury chairs. £50,000 meeting table would be like 10 or 20 times the amount of money that Tower Hamlets Council mentioned as being owed by alleged rent defaulters, whose alleged default, according to the council, justified the council taking court action against those alleged defaulters. Now, if we take 10 cases, 10 households, 10 families, on an average, if you say the household included or consisted of at least 3 individuals each, that would be 30 people affected. And the implications, the effect and the impact of the dislocation caused by eviction, repossession action against any household is something that does not end in months. The impact continues for the rest of their lives. So, this is the council whose powers and resources are being abused by Lutfur Rahman, showing two fingers to the plight of those people, individuals as well as families, whose housing security and safety have been messed up by the council, asserting that regardless of why there was any, or there would be any, or would have been any default in paying the rent, these people were not entitled to any compassionate treatment by the council. They deserved all the bad things that they were going to face in the rest of their lives. And there was nothing criminal that they did. If they did the defaulting because of the crisis, low income, and other factors, then they were not responsible for the impact on their ability to pay the few £100 or few £1,000 rent. Whereas in one go, Lutfur Rahman has abused his position and declared that he needs £50,000 to be spent on the council's behalf for purchasing a meeting table, not even more than one, and 30 luxury chairs. There is nothing in the history of the Bara of Tar Hamlets since it became a Bara in April 1965 that has shown any evidence of any member of the council, elected council, needing to spend this kind of money for luxury and decoration, while people in the council's electoral area were literally starving or were being caused to starve for months or even longer, or were being caused by the council to suffer starvation, hunger, and disenfranchisement. So, this is the individual who was ousted by Richard Morey, who considered his behavior, Lutfur Rahman's behavior, dishonest, incredible, unacceptable. So, Richard Morey actually, in his ruling, pretends to be knowledgeable about the Bangladeshis and about tar hamlets and all the rest of it. I say pretends because the substance of his references are completely false and bogus and misleading and based on racists writing the narrative on the Bangladeshis and tar hamlets, not the Bangladeshis. But this is a matter of opinion on the part of Mori. And Mori's pretense is completely unjustified and is only there because Mori was placed in a position to give this kind of opinion, where his opinion was not sought, but he foisted himself on the image of the collective image of the community. As I said, he is ignorant, he is ill educated, and he is racist, which is the explanation why Mori made comments about John S. Williams and John Biggs in an identically positive way. Those who have experience of dealings with John Biggs and John S. Williams know that both individuals came across to individuals who knew them as being far less laudable than Mori has lauded them. But Mori's only reason for praising Williams and Biggs and Goals is that all of those three white men were white men interhamblers. And Mori, because of his ignorance, is intellectually and morally lacking in the courage and the confidence to face the truth about racism. All of these would have been possible to be used against Mori if the substance of the petition that Mori was considering justified Lutfur Rahman being treated as an honest, competent, and truthful individual. The evidence that Mori considered and refers to in the ruling shows that Lutfur Rahman was not somebody who could be trusted, that Alibor Chaudhry was not somebody that could be trusted. So Lutfur Rahman is being allowed to make a decision that, despite the fact that 120 million pounds of the people's money has been justified as being worth being spent on the move to the former London hospital premises, he needs to spend more money in making his office, mayor's office, looking more decorational than it has been or it is. Take the example of the office that is used by the Private Eye magazine, which has been used for decades. Private eye is, by independent measure, the most successful periodical in political publication in the United Kingdom. And it is currently commercially quite successful. And it hasn't needed to spend a single budget on buying new chair for the editor or the new expensive meeting table for the editor. How is that possible? The answer is that it is possible because furniture is not the achievement, etc., etc. So, back to the Mori report on paragraph 501 under bribery and the media. There is no doubt that the relationship between Mr. Rahman, that is Lutfur Rahman, and the Bengali media, now that is another piece of evidence of Mori's ignorance. It's not Bengali media, it's Bangladeshi media. The difference is very significant between Bangladeshi and Bengali. So read that again in the edited form, linguistically edited form. There is no doubt that the relationship between Mr. Rahman and the Bangladeshi media has always been very close. Most of that media is strongly, in the case of the London Bangla, often intemperately partisan. There is also no doubt that sums of great money, I'll read that again because I've misstated one word. There is also no doubt that sums of grant money were dispersed to media organizations, sometimes for worthy causes. It is noticeable, though, that all these grants were made to media organizations serving the Bangladeshi community. The court was given no evidence of any grant of public money to any media organization serving any other community. Lutfur Rahman's counsel, that is barrister, made much of the fact that a grant once thought to have been made to the Bangla Mira was in fact made to a sister organization, the British Bangladeshi Who's Who. The why it should be thought proper for public money to be spent on a publication in which, unsurprisingly, Mr. Rahman himself featured prominently, was never explained. In paragraph 503, though the payments to press organizations may just colorably come the right side of the line that separate ingratiating oneself with the press from outright bribery, payments to the Bengali televised media went further. And once more, the factual conclusion of the Price Waterhouse Cooper report confirm it. Quote 2.99 on 21st of January 2013, the Office of Communications, Ofcom, which among other things regulates the contents of television broadcasts, issued a bulletin in which it set out findings against five separate broadcasting companies: ATN Bangla UK Limited, Bangla Television UK Limited, Prime Bangla Limited, Channel S Global Limited, and Runners TV Limited. The subject matter of these findings was a broadcast each of the companies had aired, which purported to be for the purpose of disseminating information about services of the authority, that is, London Borough of Tower Hamlets Council as a council, to sections of the community within the political, within the borough, that is Tower Hamlets. The findings were that the advertisement was in breach of section 321 bracket 2 bracket B of the Communications Act 2003 and Rule 7.2.2 within brackets G of the Code of Broadcast Advertising as it constituted political advertising. Ofcom concluded, we consider that the advertisement served to portray the Mayor of Tower Hamlets, Lutfur Rahman, in a positive light. 2.100. In a response to member inquiry, the service head for communications and marketing disclosed that the authority, that is Tower Hamlets Council, had made payments to each of the companies as a fee for the broadcasts. 2.101. The authority, that is Tower Hamlets Council, has stated that it did not agree with Ofcom's ruling, but it did not, in fact, challenge it. Therefore, the facts indicate that Tower Hamlets Council monies were used to pay for an informational broadcast that was raised. I'll read that again. Point 2100 in now 2101. The authority, the Tower Hamlets Council, has stated that it did not agree with Ofcom's ruling, but it did not, in fact, challenge the ruling. Therefore, the facts indicate the Tower Hamlets Council monies were used to pay for an informational broadcast that was ruled by the responsible regulator to be intended to promote the image and reputation of the mayor in breach of versions, codes, including the authority's own, that is Tower Council's own 2.102, Tower Council has asserted that it has made a number of process applications protocol. The paragraph back to Richard Morey is paragraph 504. What Price Waterhouse Cooper is reporting can be summarized as follows. Mr. Lutfur Rahman caused the council to pay public money by way of fees for broadcasts which were ostensibly about the borough and its administration, but which were, in fact, personal political broadcasts on behalf of Mr. Lutfur Rahman, promoting him to the Bengali speaking electorate of Tower Hamlets in the context of Mr. Rahman's fully intended to stand for re-election when his first term of office expired. The broadcasts cannot be regarded as other than intended to promote his political career. Furthermore, despite earlier adverse rulings from Ofcom, both Mr. Rahman and the television companies persisted in and earned further adverse from its labels channels. So it goes on. That ruling by Richard Morey, dated the 23rd of April 2015, if it is treated as a statement of the abuse of the council's money by Lutfur Rahman, constitutes an audit that should have been otherwise available but was not. But this audit remains unchallenged on the evidence. And Lutfur Rahman has not challenged that, nor has the so called Aspire party, nor has any of its propagandists in any part of the so called ethnicity linked outlets that are still doing business, especially the Channel S. So when Rachel Barford publishes this thing, Tower Hamlets to spend thousands on lavish mayor's office, she could easily have found all the evidence that I have quoted and I have mentioned and I have implied, but she chose not to. The result being that although it is the poorest borough in Tower Hamlets spending this obscene amount of money for the mayor's promotion and his office, etc., the ordinary people that are affected as well, who are not necessarily inclined one way or the other about political preferences, but who are entitled to know that the money that belongs to the people of Tar Hamlets is being used by following the highest possible standard of accountability, relevance. There is nothing in Rachel Barford's report that even recognizes the existence of the elected councillors. We shall be continuing on this one as and when we find relevant updated material or material that needs updating. We have been broadcasting on this bulletin for 46 minutes. What are the other items that we could actually touch on? Let's check what we could touch on. The Pakistan Army's kidnapping of Imran Khan, of course, is festering as well. And as we said before, not in this edition but in previous editions, the daily title called The Dawn should have been publishing some of the most appealing issues for the cause of Pakistan, the issues that were being argued for and promoted in the 1930s and up to August 1947. But they're not. And no other outlet in Pakistan is talking about the Hakiki Azadi that Imran Khan has been talking about during 2022. So if you look at the events in the northeast of India and the mass attacks that are being organized by the Hindutva supported regime in Manipur, especially in Manipur, on the Koki tribe, you can see that although it is part of the same federal republic, Manipur and the other six so called sister states are very far from being equal to the ordinary Indian states. And I don't believe that this is an isolated incident, just Manipur's women being raped and attacked. It is happening right across the state of Kashmir, occupied state of Kashmir. And mass rapes and gang rapes are taking place across India, and the victims are women, Muslim women and Muslim girls. And the Indian so called democratic newspapers and the media are not raising the issue. Now, back to the Communist Party of Great Britain, CPGB, and their Morning Star, they've got a piece about Narendra Modi, which is run with a picture of a banner being raised in Manipur in support of the victims of the rapes, etc., in Manipur. If you look at the actual heading and the picture that they are running, you can see that the so called kind of protest against Narendra Modi and the BJP is pathetic. They call it rape culture. How can you call it rape culture? Rape is as heinous as murder, and you cannot use the term culture about rape in any way. But the fact that the Indian so called protesters are using rape culture and the CPGB's Morning Star in London is running that shows that to them rape is another cultural event, and that gives the game away. Why Modi feels confident and why he and his co-perpetrators, including Amit Shah, are showing two fingers to the victims in Manipur and in the neighboring other states, and also the other parts of the region where violations of human rights are taking place every single day. So, what we have been doing is talking about these in parallel with the events in Pakistan where the military has hijacked the judiciary in the state and has now increased its attacks on Imran Khan and the Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf. As I was saying, the Dawn newspaper, although it is the name remains the same as it was when Muhammad Ali Jinnah started it, with the Siloti man, Altaf Hussain, being the editor. The Dawn remains Dawn in name only. The Dawn is not talking about Hakiki Azadi in Pakistan, and Dawn is not breaking any story, any news. Contrary to the image of the Dawn that M.A. Jinnah founded and Altaf Hussain edited, with the rigorous vigor of the campaigners against the British imperialists in the 1940s. So we shall be bringing an end to this one at this stage, which would be 54 minutes, just over 54 minutes at 08:15 hours GMT, and we shall be continuing in due course whenever